Okay, I think we'll get started. Everyone, welcome. My name is Scott Livingston. I am over marketing here at Gideon Taylor. And today I just want to make a couple of really quick notes to you so you'll feel very much a part of our experience today. First, we're just delighted to have Jessica from Western University. I'll let Scott Anton and Jessica introduce herself as well, but excited to hear so much from what she's got to share. If you have questions, feel free to drop those into the Q&A at any point during our presentation, and we will make sure we get to those either at the end or if they make sense during the session. And we're going to record this. It's being recorded, so if after the fact, if you missed something or wanted to see more, we will send that link out to you once we have the recording ready. With that, I'm going to turn the time over to Scott Anton for a quick intro, and then we'll get right into Jessica's presentation. Mr. Anton.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Scott. Good afternoon or good morning or potentially good evening, everyone. We're excited to be kicking this off. This is the first of our Lunch and Learn sessions, which we intend to have as a monthly webinar for people to join. They're designed to just be quick bites to understand how organizations around the world are using GT eForms to automate processes within their PeopleSoft applications, PeopleSoft HCM, financials, and campus solutions. Western University up in London, Ontario, has been very gracious to agree to be the first, our guinea pigs. So Jessica, thank you very much. And they're going to be focused on sharing some information about some of the things that they're doing with GT eForms inside PeopleSoft Financials, although they also use the tool inside PeopleSoft HCM and Campus Solutions. Western started using GT eForms in early 2021. And I know that Jessica's going to provide some additional background in terms of what they've done over the last couple of years, as well as showing you some examples of the forms that they've built. For those of you who aren't familiar with GT eForms, I think we've probably got a lot of existing clients on the call. Those of you who might be new to Gideon Taylor GT eForms, it is a people tools-based bolt-on that allows for organizations to build out their own custom workflow-enabled self-service solutions to automate any number of different processes. Whatever your business process requirements might be, folks are using GT eForms to automate those and automating those faster and easier than any other tool out there when you're looking at creating these kinds of solutions inside PeopleSoft. They're intelligent, as I mentioned, they're workflow enabled, they're all fluid. So it's a great tool to be able to launch unique self-service options for your institution, your organization, to meet the unique requirements of whomever your users might be. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Jessica Clays at Western. And good luck, Jessica. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. So welcome, everyone. Thanks for sharing your lunch with me. We've got a quick 30 minutes, so I'm going to motor right through here. So if I talk too fast, hopefully with the recording, you can, listen to me at halftime. But we've got a lot to cover, so bear with me. So as Scott mentioned, I am at Western University. I'm a systems analyst with financial services. We're located in London, Ontario, Canada. And we have about 34,000 full-time students, 1,400 faculty, 2,600 full-time staff. And while we do have PeopleSoft Campus Solutions in HR, I work in FCM, so our focus today are going to be on forms we developed in what we call Western Financials. We are on PeopleTools 8.5.9, PeopleSoft version 9.2, image 34, and the modules that we use are billing and receivables, customers, expenses, general ledger, grants, procurement, and payables. We are on GT eForms version 3.5, and we use Fluid Forms and Helium Performance in all of our forms. And we are currently underway with the 3.5.8 testing and dev. So hopefully we will get to launch that soon. And I'll touch on some of those features today as we work through our presentation. So a little bit of background on Western Financial's forms. During the pandemic, we had very few individuals on campus, and we had an urgent need to bring our paper processes online and to be able to collect information and use electronic workflow to meet business requirements. We implemented delivered PeopleSoft forms to quickly deal with immediate needs. The forms are relatively simple to implement because there weren't many options for configuration. So it's sort of like filling out a piece of paper, but online, if you can imagine that. Nevertheless, it helped us get online quickly and route information and attachments electronically for approval using basic workflow. While these forms were great to get us through an emergency situation, once things settled a bit, we obviously weren't interested in returning to paper, so we needed to decide whether to consider heavy customization to continue with PeopleSoft forms or look for what else was out there to better suit our needs. Now, Scott Anton had delivered us an in-person demo of GT Forms in the fall of 2019. At the time, it did seem like we were a long ways from getting together a business case for the product, but little did we know what was going to in store for us all in just a few short months later. So between the pandemic push and our HR colleagues, thank you, they were the drivers behind getting GT Forms so quickly. We installed version 3.3 by early 2021. Finance implemented our first simple form in the fall of 2021, and since then we now have 23 in production, supporting various business financial processes. GT eForms have definitely been received positively by our business process admins and by our user community. Every day I'm fielding several requests for new forms or additional functionality. Now, I mentioned that we have 23 forms in production. I'm not going to go through them all, but here's a listing of them if you want to review at a later time, since this is recorded, and ask me any questions you might have then. So here's a quick peek at our forms dashboard in Western Financials. There are 23 forms housed in these 9 form families. And you can think of a form family as just a grouping of forms of a similar nature. So here's an example of our billing and customer form family tile. Each form family contains a landing page, which is great for orienting our users and pushing information directly into their hands, which is exactly where they need it. I was going to say, who here is tired of asking a question and hearing it's on our website, but I can't see anyone's hands? But I personally never think that that's very useful to our users. To me, that's just a repository for information, and if you have to go look for it, it's not that useful. So next we've listed the form types that can be filled out related to billing and customers. So for example, we have our new biller form, new invoice, cancel invoice, add or update a bill type, and add or update a customer. Next, we've listed the form types for those that are familiar with GT form lingo, the add tasks is used to open and create a new form. Next, we have the update task, where saved or submitted forms can be updated, submitted, resubmitted, or canceled. And lastly, at least for us in Western, we have the view task, which shows all billing and customer forms in all statuses. Now, I say lastly because what's missing here? Of course, approvals. So accessing a form for approval is done through the evaluate task. Instead of including this task separately in each form tile, we've configured these forms to show in fluid approvals, where all of our workflow approvals are accessed. This way, we're able to always direct our users to the same place to find all Western Financial's transactions for approval, regardless of whether they accidentally deleted an email. Didn't receive the notification. Also, I wanted to mention that because this is a PeopleSoft bolt-on, I can configure the icons to look like our other navigation collections. And again, this provides a seamless user experience. So why GT eForms? Well, besides the fact that Scott's a great salesperson, and thanks to our HR folks for landing GT Forms right in our lab, as a functional analyst and an impatient one at that, I'm all about configuration. GT Forms allows us to be in control of helping our end users quickly and efficiently without needing to engage a developer in many cases because of all their configurable options. So here's a listing of a handful of must-have features for our forms. And in the last columns, we compare this feature, whether it's available by default or through configuration in GT Forms, and versus PeopleSoft forms. Dynamic displays. Dynamic displays of fields, segments, and pages. We want our users to see what the information that they need to see and only when they need to see it. I want the ability to query form data. I want the ability to monitor and report on this data. I would like to be able to configure my custom fields and lists. So easily create translates. If I'm able to create a custom field, I can easily create a translate without messing with any current delivered fields. And for those functionals who may not have access to update translate values, in 3.5.8, there's a new feature where you can create your own valued list. I would like instructions on the form, and not only on the form, but I want them in the section I'm working on. And better yet, I want them in the field that I'm working on, and I only want them to show if certain criteria are met. Long list, eh? I want an admin tool that actually helps me manage forms, not the manage forms under PeopleSoft forms, which just basically shows me how many forms have been initiated. I want to be able to monitor and view my form data. I want to be able to see the actions that a form has taken. I want copies of all notifications that have gone out. And I also want to be able to take action as an admin if I need to, like to resubmit an accidentally deleted or denied form. I would like a tool for sending notifications. So whenever we needed to reassign a PeopleSoft form, we also needed to draft an email to the new approver to let them know that it was routed to them. With an email tool, we could send a copy of the specifically tailored email template to the reassigned approver. So on that note, I also want to be able to configure my email notifications, and I want them to be configured based on the form type. I want them to include specific information from the form, and I want to choose which recipient receives the notification. This may or may not include additional users who aren't even a part of the workflow. I also want to be able to transport my form into any environment. I don't want to have to recreate my form. It's a waste of time. And I also don't want to have to request a developer or a DBA to help migrate, especially if there's no custom objects used by the form. And lastly, I want the user to stay on the form when clicking save. Well, you can't win them all. I mean, I can't let all this hype go to GT's head. I understand how the framework is built and why it's not necessarily possible, but I have to say it can be annoying and confusing for users who are used to accessing the add or update component in PeopleSoft from the same page and used to being able to save and remain on the page. So I know it seems like I'm picking on PeopleSoft forms, but really it's the only other forms that I have experience with. So this quick demo is just going to illustrate some of the features I referred to on the last slide. I'm going to use our Research Finance Delegation of Signing Authority form. The PeopleSoft version is on the left and the GT version on the right. The purpose of a Research Delegation of Signing Authority form is to submit a request for a delegate to be authorized to approve purchases charged to a research grant. Since there are very specific special requirements for research, we've created their own special Delegation of Signing Authority form. So first off, I want you to notice that when the user ID of the delegate is entered, the GT form on the right automatically populates the related information. In this case, the name that's associated with the delegate's user ID. We've also filled in the researcher's ID, and we can see the researcher's full name. Once we filled out the researcher's name, we can see that the project information section now appeared. And the reason for this is because the speed codes related to the project should relate specifically to the researcher that was entered. Again, notice that the related information automatically populates based on the project selected. Also notice that the start date is defaulted to today's date. Guess when I made this presentation. Also notice that the field can be overridden if needed, but since most people want the delegation to start immediately, why not save them a few keystrokes? Now, what if the user wants the delegation to continue until the project ends? They can select no end date and the field disappears. On the PeopleSoft form, this field is left blank, but it leaves us to wonder the user's intention. Did they miss filling this out, or was there supposed to be no end date? With GT forms, we can also add error or warning messages right on the form to provide the user with immediate feedback where they've entered a value that's not allowed or recommended. In PeopleSoft forms, there would need to be development involved to add this logic. Next, research has a requirement that both the delegate and the account holder attest to their responsibilities. In GT forms, we have the ability to show this action item when the current logged in user is the actual delegate. In PeopleSoft forms, no such logic existed. So the individual processing the forms was constantly having to follow up if the form was submitted by somebody and therefore signed off by someone other than the delegate. And lastly, with GT forms, we have the ability to rename buttons. Again, this is through configuration in 358, which is amazing. This way, we can rename the Save button to Save for Later, giving the user a sense that the intention is to leave the current page when they save and to return to the form at a later time. Even though I haven't highlighted them here, notice all the instructions on the GT form, useful information in the hands of the user when they're filling out the form. There's no need for the user to have two screens up or to have to navigate away if they have a question. Motoring along here, we've got a couple demos. So we've got our guest student expense report, and here's a quick snippet of what it looks like. And then we've also got our payment requisition. So I'm just going to hop out and do a quick demo here. Looks like we're still okay for time. So here's our guest student reports form family. We've only got one form type in here. And again, the plus represents the add task. So we're going to create a new guest student expense report. Also notice this information for the user about which link to click on and what those links do, as well as frequently asked questions, because who wants to get emailed? So let's move on. So we've got some information here directing them what payee type to use. So we've renamed our vendor ID payee since we're not actually purchasing anything. So in this case, we're going to use a single pay vendor, which we've termed one-time payee. And this is for those who don't already have a vendor record. And we don't want, if it's a small dollar value, if we just need to issue a Canadian or US check, we don't really want to have to waste our time setting up a whole vendor for that. We're going to select our reimbursement currency. And we've got a view that looks at what's the exchange rate that we're going to be charged today. We're going to enter our name, the country of our recipient, I'll check out my address. Oh, I guess obviously Ontario isn't in the States. Look at that. Helpful information to make sure that we don't have any data entry errors. Let's go to Michigan. So next we're going to enter where we want this expense report to be charged to. We use the speed code as a short form of all of our chart fields. And so it makes data entry easier for our users. They only have to remember like a 4-digit alphanumeric character. But as confirmation that I've put in the correct speed code, I can see I'm charging Fund 1, Department 421030, and Program 00000. We've got some useful information for the user about what these various fields mean. We also have some helpful links here. For example, on our reimbursement procedures, allowances, and things like that. I'm going to select my expense type from a dropdown. Again, remember, this can be your own translate value or a value list. I'm going to type in a description. This is a cool feature that I like that we've done with this form, which is to enter in Canadian or the reimbursement currency. So sometimes we have guests from other countries who have some receipts in their own currency, and sometimes they have them from their travel in Canada. So if I've paid for my membership fee in US dollars, it's going to use that exchange rate up top. And it's going to automatically convert the Canadian amount. This is useful for both the person receiving the funds as well as the admin person that's entering it to know what's going to be charged to their GL, and also for approvers to see what is the actual Canadian equivalent that they're going to be charged. I can add a line here. And then I'm going to also pick training and development. Here I'm going to pick Canadian currency because that's what I paid. $48 is steel. So you can also see here that based on the expense type, our account was automatically populated. And that's for, again, less keystrokes for the end user. However, if a specific department didn't actually want to charge membership fees, they wanted to charge a more general account, then they can definitely override it. But why waste time entering information if you don't need to change it? So down here in the expense report summary, we're going to enter our expense report reference. Our business purpose, guest speaker, English. I can see that my expense report date has automatically been populated based on the date that I created the report, and I can't override that, and that's for business reasons. I can see that my total reimbursement amount is $533.91 US by check. I can also see that the Canadian equivalent is $755.85. So this answers so many questions for our end users who weren't sure what either their guest was going to be reimbursed or what they were going to be charged in the end. We also have an option to add special handling if the payment method is check. So because our payment method is check, this section shows. If it was wire transfer, this would not show at all. Again, dynamic information when it's needed. So why not? Special handling. Please courier. VIP. I can spell. And we're going to submit that. Perfect. This was routed to a department admin. So I'm going to follow this one report all the way through because I think we are making good time. Just because I want you guys to see both the power of the form admin tool, the component interface related to this form, as well as just how quickly this form turns into a voucher, eliminating the need for data entry. So this is form 113506. So here's a quick look at the, I guess, overall where the form is. I can see that it's pending our reviewer. Next, it's going to route to the department approver. It will skip this step, and then it's going to route to our auditor. We've got our form log as to what's happened to this form. We've got the form data, which you shouldn't need to touch. Any action items, there weren't any. There was no signing off or anything to attest here. And we've got our notification log, where I can see that I submitted this form and I received an email confirming that I submitted the form, also directing me, if you need to check the status of your form, here's where you go. And if you need to make a change, here's where you go. Again, a custom email that goes directly to the user, because especially when they're submitting their first form, they're at a loss. Where do I go now? I can also see that this email has been routed to our approver. We've submitted this. The claimant is Joe. This is the reference. Click here to approve. Okay, great. Now, again, in the interest of time, I am just going to approve all of these and authorize this test form. Then, which I think is really cool, I can actually see the integration broker message that's running to create the voucher. And since I'm always impatient, I'm always clicking refresh. But as you can see, that message is done. Boom. What was that, like 17 seconds? My voucher is created. This, I didn't need an individual to have to key this information for me. I'm going to go over into my vouchers for payments. And faster than I can even navigate there, this form has turned into a voucher and it's ready to be go through nightly processes to be paid. We can see our single payment supplier information has populated from our form. Okay, so I think I have time to just quickly go through our payment requisition form, or at least highlight some of the what I think are kind of cool things about it. I also want to note that the payment requisition form uses the same component interface as the expense form. So we're able to use that. We were able to do the work for one component interface and kind of copy that app package for each form and just update a couple fields. So as soon as we figured out the background information, it was very easy to duplicate and use this functionality elsewhere. So here again, instead of selecting a one-time vendor, I want to send a payment to this vendor. I could use the prompt to find the vendor information, but I already know the number is 176655. But what if I had a typo? Well, I'm going to confirm that it's this university in Budapest. I can see that they're reimbursed, or sorry, that we're going to send payment in euro, which is the currency of their bank account. I can see the exchange rate that I'm going to get as of today, and I can see we're going to pay this by wire. The rest of the form is quite similar to the expense reimbursement form. I'm going to put in where it's going to be charged. Then I'm going to enter account, if I knew an account. $10. This puts me in charge of where I'm going to see in my GL. So I'm sending funds for sponsor. And this requisition reference, again, this is the reference that the recipient is going to receive. So I can put in something that's useful for them. So pre-contract 23A. And then I would submit that. And I've got a nice summary here. My requisition to date was today. I'm sending $10, or sorry, 10 euros. And that's going to charge me $15.11. The payment method is wire. Boom, done. Very quickly, we are done our demos. I'm sure there might be questions out there, but I've got one or two more slides. And so then we can have questions afterwards. So I did mention that one of my goals is always to push information into the hands of the end user, keeping them in control of information about their form. And that hopefully results in less follow-up questions to our help desk folks. So here are some of the emails that an end user would receive for the guest student expense report. So back when we had PeopleSoft forms, they received this lovely information on the left. Form 5774 approved. It was submitted by this user. What if this user was married, had a different last name? I have no idea who MSHALLAL is. The description is a user entered description as well. So this is just as useful as whichever information that we were given by the by the original user. On the right, we've got our configured GT eForms approval, where we can see that our claimant was Jeff Cameron. The amount that they were reimbursed was $474, $71.40 USD. I can also check the payment information, including reference, amount, and method of the form here. Also, a reminder, this is when our pay cycles run. So if you've had this approved today and it's a USD check, don't bother checking this. It's not going to be issued till Thursday. Is this information on our website? Yes. Do I want them to have to go out and look for it? No. So this particular form, I've actually pulled out, all this is a simple drilling URL that pulls in the results for this form specifically. I can see that the check was issued on November 13th, and this was the reference number. You wouldn't believe the number of emails that we get for follow-up for this, and so this has put the information in the hands of our users. So the bottom line, I mentioned, what's the point of all this streamlining and automation? Well, it's resource savings, of course. So here are some stats about 3 of our 23 forms: the payment requisition, the guest student expense, and the check conversion. They all use the voucher component interface to automatically populate a voucher for payment once all approvals are obtained. So based on the number of executed forms, we've estimated about 10 weeks savings on data entry for our corporate accounting department alone, just over these 3 forms and just based on data entry, nothing else. This is not including any other savings from streamlining this process, or even simply having a single online repository to hold the information, and also adding electronic workflow so that paper literally does not need to move from desk to desk to be signed. So these days, obviously, as our complexity of all of our work intensifies, the savings through the automation of routine processes means that our employees can focus on more value-added work. Let's be honest, keeps me in a job too. So that's everything for today. I'm only a few minutes over time. So many questions?
Jessica, it looks like there's one in the queue. Have you had cases where you needed to send the form to another approval path that's different from the current approval path the form is on?
So one of the things that you're going to find when you're developing these forms with your business process partners is really nailing down where their business process and where things need to go. So of course, there are times when forms need to be reassigned because perhaps an approver has left and we need to reassign it. But for the most part, I don't need to change the workflow or the approval path because we've really nailed down the process in the beginning. However, as I said, there have been times, and that's an easy thing to do. You just reassign it. And then, like I mentioned, through the email tool, you can send them that exact email notification, and it looks seamless for them.
Awesome. Thank you. I've got another one. This is a great question. How long does it take to create a form and get training for it?
To create a form, as complex as it is, so if you don't need any development, and like I said, every iteration and every new framework of GT forms that comes out, it provides you more and more configuration. So if it's in your hands, it's as quickly as you can go. It's also, of course, dependent on how well your business knows their own processes, because a lot of times they'll just say that they want a simple form going from A to B, but then when you really ask them, how does it go to A to B? They don't know. So the answer is you can have it out same day. You're in charge of migrating the form. So you could have this developed and out the same day. It all depends on how quick you are and how quick your business knows your business.
That's a great response. And that's something that we often remind organizations of, is that you're automating a business process that might not be particularly well defined nor efficient. So this gives you a really good opportunity to assess those business processes and see if there are ways to improve the efficiency before you even start automating.
However, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, as a primary example, I don't know if anyone noticed at the top of this form here, we did think that we had everything together for this payment requisition form, that we knew exactly where it was supposed to route. Well, lo and behold, a couple departments had very special processes. So this section here called payment requisition approver is showing only for that very specific department and only gets invoked if they put in their own approver. So did we have to do that on the fly? Yes. Did it take us 15 minutes? Yes. So that was even reworking the workflow, after this was even in production.
There are, oh my goodness, we're getting more questions. Where can users access the attachments that were uploaded as part of the form?
They can access, so in the view task, you can view any form that was in any status, and that's where you can view the attachments. So as long as you have, we didn't even touch on security, there's so much to talk about, but as long as you have access to the form and access to the attachments, then you can view those at any time. So the approvers can view them. And like I said, it's a nice repository for holding information as well, so that you know where to find it later.
Yeah. GT eForms accommodates storing attachments really anywhere you might want them. By default, they can be stored in PeopleSoft, but there's also integrations to other document management systems like OnBase, Perceptive Content. How does a forms author who has limited understanding of database structures / relations develop the query processes to validate data entries? Wouldn't this require the involvement of a developer?
So in a lot of cases, you probably already have a view that exists that you just didn't even know about it. So it is good to get familiar with your records and to know what information is available to be validated. You might need to create a new view. I guess that all depends on how well you know your data. And I do know that in 358, and Scott, you can probably speak to this as well, that there's so much more configuration that you can do in the data pool to kind of create your own.
There is. Yeah. Lynette, I don't know if you've got anything that you'd like to comment on with regards to that. Lynette. Oh, she might be otherwise engaged. She's on mute. Let me go ahead and jump to another question while we're at it. Let's see. How many people on your team can create a form, or what is your process for getting a new form added?
Anyone can really, but I've been sort of the one that jumped on the bandwagon. So anyone who has access can create them.
Let's see. I don't know if this is a question. I'm just going to read a good response. I can make a form quick. Oh, in terms of the effort required to build a form. Darcy responded, good response. I can make a form quick, but if the customer doesn't have their business process in line, it could take a long time. Yep, there's a lot to do with the actual business process itself. Do you use generic segment records, page rec, or form-specific segment record names?
I use generic page rec because I can access, because I've realized it wasn't needed. Because when you're calling that form segment in the data pool or in the email template, it knows which form type you're looking at. But I recently took the general training, which I never took, and I understood that for grids, it is a good idea to name your grid something separate. And it has to do with level 0, level 1. I'm a functional. I understand it, but I can't explain it. Bottom line, it is not necessary to rename your segments, but you should with your grids.
So your comment about the training, Jessica, had you not taken the standard training?
No, and that's another thing. I had zero experience, no training. I was one of the only ones that wasn't around when we did the GT training. So this was all self-taught, and that, GT has a great SharePoint site, and support at Gideon Taylor is like my favorite email, extremely helpful. So yeah, easy to just teach yourself. And so I just took the basic training, I think like 2 weeks ago, just as a refresher and to understand, am I even doing this the way it was intended?
And did you find that you were?
Well, not the grid one, but
right.
that was good.
That's fantastic. You're an awesome success story. Another question, does your institution incorporate things like 3Cs with your forms, such as assigning forms if a checklist is placed or completing a checklist if a form completes workflow?
Not familiar with the 3Cs.
Cs?
I
Yeah, I
think
think
I
that
can jump in there. Can you hear me, Scott?
Yeah.
My internet connection is not cooperating that well today. But Andrea just mentioned as well, Berkeley does use this. So the nice thing about 3Cs is it's kind of a query-based communication tool. It is unique to Campus Solutions. So that's why you wouldn't be familiar with it in the finance or the HCM side of things. So you can absolutely connect it into your 3C communications. You can pull the data from the form using query and embed that into the BI publisher reports that are sent out as part of your communications and reminders.
Andrea Lloyd, I feel like I have a celebrity. I'm glad I didn't know. I know you from the forum.
So we're happy to hang out for a few more minutes if people still have questions or comments that you'd like to share. This has been a great discussion.
I just realized I didn't answer the second part of someone's question, which is what is our process to request a new form? And really, it's informal. I get requests on the daily, and it's just triaging which we think are going to, be the big hits because there's only one of me.
So to that point, I just got a note from Ab, one of our friends at Western, and he was just clarifying that there are 3 people on the Western team, the Western finance team, that can create forms, but Jessica has been the sole creator. Our approach was to convert existing paper forms first, and then to open the door for other users to request forms for their business processes. As Jessica mentioned, there are requests coming in frequently, and we are having to evaluate them based on priority. Thank you very much, Ab. That's valuable to know. Well, Jessica, you did a fantastic job. Thank you. And you were an awesome guinea pig.
Amen. Amen. That was fabulously done. So many great questions and just what a delight. We're so excited, everybody. Thank you for joining us. And again, this is recorded. So yes, we will send out this link. Feel free to reach out. Jessica's very graciously shared her email. You can also reach out to support@gideontaylor.com for any questions you've got. You can certainly reach Scott at gideontaylor.com, Scott Anton, who's here to do that help as well. Or Lynette at gideontaylor.com. We're all pretty easy to find. So we're just honored that you came and look forward to a link for next month. We're working on that, the details of that right now, but we're going to plan to do this every month and really just showcase all of these amazing clients that we're so privileged to work with. And Jessica, bravo, you've set the bar high. And I think Scott may be sending over a job offer later this afternoon. So anyway, it's been fabulous. Thank you all. And we look forward to sharing again with you soon.
Thanks so much for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Yep. Darcy, yes, we will get that list to you. So you would love to get a list of the forms they have in production, so we can certainly help with that. Okay, I think we're good.
I'm just here to say, don't you dare.
Okay.
I would never dream of it.
Just kidding, Ab. No worries. Don't sweat that. But she was amazing. You've got quite the treasure there. All right, everybody. Thanks again. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we're excited to see you again soon.